When Ethan heard his wife joke about being with other men, he laughed it off until her fantasy became dangerously real. What started as a playful conversation spiraled into a life-altering test of loyalty. But Ethan wasn't about to let betrayal go unchallenged. He had a plan. Ethan and Chloe had always been the kind of couple people admired. Mid-30s, no kids by choice, and living a comfortable life in Denver. Their friends described them as balanced. He was steady, thoughtful, a bit reserved. She was witty, spontaneous, always quick with a comeback. Their marriage wasn't perfect, but it was solid, or so Ethan thought. It was a Thursday night like any other. Ethan had just gotten back from work, and Chloe had already opened a bottle of wine. They curled up on the couch, joking about their neighbors, debating whether to finally take that trip to Oregon. The conversation was light, playful, easy, until Chloe, half laughing, threw out a line that didn't land the way she expected. "You ever wonder what it'd be like to be with multiple people at once?" she asked, swirling her wine. Ethan nearly choked on his drink. "What?" she grinned, playing it off. "I'm just saying. Like, ever think about it? It's not like I'd actually do it." He laughed. It was nervous laughter, the kind that comes when someone drops a grenade mid-conversation and pretends it's a balloon. That's definitely out of the blue. But Chloe just shrugged. "It's just a random thought. Don't overthink it." They moved on, joked about other things, finished the bottle, but that line stuck with Ethan. She'd said it too casually. No punchline, no follow-up joke, just a fantasy laid out like a test. That night, as they lay in bed, Ethan stared at the ceiling. He wasn't jealous, not yet, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. 7 years of marriage, and she'd never mentioned anything like that. Why now? The next morning was ordinary. Chloe danced around the kitchen humming to herself while cooking breakfast. Ethan sat at the table, trying to act normal. The smell of coffee filled the room, but there was something else in the air, something unspoken. Still staring at his toast, he asked, "Hey, about what you said last night." Chloe turned with a curious smile. "What did I say?" "You know," he said, forcing a chuckle, "that whole fantasy thing." She blinked, then laughed. "Oh my God, are you still thinking about that?" "Yeah, well, I was just wondering, were you serious?" She paused, then slowly walked over and sat down. For a second, Ethan thought she'd brush it off again. But this time, she didn't laugh. "I mean, I've thought about it, yeah," she said. "But it's just a fantasy. I've never acted on it, Ethan. You know I'd never do anything behind your back." He nodded, trying to read her. There was no shame in her voice, no fear, just honesty, maybe too much of it. He didn't say anything right away. He just sipped his coffee and gave a neutral nod. Good to know. But inside, something cracked. It wasn't the fantasy itself that got to him. It was how comfortable she seemed with it, how easily she'd opened that door. Chloe changed the subject, but Ethan was only half listening. She didn't realize what she triggered. He wasn't angry, not yet, but curiosity had taken root, and it was growing. That evening, he brought it up again, this time half joking. "So if you ever actually wanted to try something like that, what would you expect from me?" Chloe laughed. "I don't know. I mean, it's not like I've made a plan or anything." "Right, but if you did, you'd want me involved?" She looked at him, a little more seriously now. "You'd really consider something like that?" He shrugged. "If it meant something to you, maybe, but only if we were both all in." Chloe tilted her head. "You'd be okay with that?" "I didn't say I would be. I said I might consider it. But it'd have to go both ways." That night, Ethan lay in bed wide awake while Chloe slept soundly next to him. Her words played on repeat in his head. He didn't know if she was testing his boundaries or if she was genuinely trying to open the door to something she'd been thinking about for a long time. Either way, he was sure of one thing now. Their marriage wasn't what he thought it was. There were layers to Chloe he'd never seen, or maybe never noticed. And whatever this was, this spark, this idea, wasn't going away. So Ethan decided to wait, to watch, to see just how serious she really was. But he also made a quiet decision of his own. If Chloe wanted to play with fire, he'd make sure they both felt the heat. The next few days were a blur of normalcy, on the surface. Ethan went to work, came home, and shared meals with Chloe like nothing had changed. But inside, everything was shifting. He kept replaying her words, her expression, her excitement that morning when he teased her about the fantasy. It hadn't been a joke for her, and now it wasn't a joke for him either. He began paying more attention. Chloe wasn't acting guilty or distant. In fact, she was more affectionate than usual, more relaxed, as if she'd let go of a secret. That unsettled Ethan more than if she had pulled away. One evening after dinner, they sat on the porch. The mood was calm, almost too calm. "Remember that conversation we had?" Ethan asked. Chloe looked over, smiling. "About the wild fantasy?" "Yeah, I've been thinking. Maybe we should stop pretending it's a joke." She raised an eyebrow. "You're serious?" "Serious enough to say I'm open to hearing what you really want. If you're honest with me, I won't judge." Chloe hesitated. It was the first time she looked unsure. "You wouldn't be mad?" "No, but I want the truth." She took a moment, then nodded. "Okay, I've thought about it, yeah. About being with someone else. Not because you're not enough, but because I wonder what else is out there. And I know how that sounds. But I've never acted on it, Ethan. I swear." Ethan leaned back, nodding slowly. "So what if I said I'd try it? With you? One time? On one condition?" Her eyes searched his. "What condition?" "You invite someone. Someone you trust, not a stranger. Someone you know." Chloe's reaction was a mix of surprise and discomfort. "You want me to pick someone I know?" "Yeah. If this is about honesty and trust, then let's see if you're really ready to cross that line." She didn't answer right away, but she didn't say no. That night she barely slept. Ethan pretended to be asleep, but he felt her tossing. In the morning her mood was quieter, reserved, like she was calculating something. Ethan said nothing. He didn't push. The seed had been planted. 2 days later, Chloe picked up her phone and typed a short message to Amanda, an old college friend who had always been a little too comfortable with boundaries. Amanda was the kind of person who joked about everything. She'd once teased Chloe that her marriage was too traditional to survive the 2020s. Chloe's message was simple. "Got a weird question. Can we talk?" Amanda replied instantly. "Always, spill it." Chloe paused. Then she hit call. The next evening, Ethan was home when Chloe pulled him aside. "Amanda's coming over tomorrow." He raised an eyebrow. "She knows why?" "She has an idea. I didn't get into details." Ethan just nodded. "All right." When Amanda arrived the next night, she was her usual self, loud, friendly, unfiltered. She brought wine, made jokes, and didn't seem the least bit uncomfortable. Chloe, on the other hand, was visibly nervous. Ethan stayed quiet, observant. They chatted casually for the first hour. Then Chloe cleared her throat and looked at Amanda. "Remember when you said we were too traditional?" Amanda laughed. "I say that about everyone." "Well, Ethan and I talked about maybe trying something new, just once, and we thought of you." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was charged. Amanda looked from Chloe to Ethan. "Wait, you're serious?" Chloe nodded. Ethan remained silent, letting the moment settle. Amanda leaned back, processing. Then she smiled. "That's honestly not the weirdest thing anyone's ever asked me." Chloe blinked. "So you're not freaked out?" "Not at all. If anything, I'm surprised you're the one asking." Amanda's tone was casual, but Ethan noticed everything. The way Chloe's hands shook slightly, the relief in her voice, the unspoken tension between curiosity and dread. They didn't plan anything that night, but the door was open. Amanda said she'd think about it. Ethan thanked her politely, then walked her to the door. Chloe stayed behind, visibly shaken. "I can't believe I said it out loud," she said after Amanda left. "You did fine," Ethan replied. "Do you think she'll say yes?" "She already did. She just doesn't want to sound too eager." Chloe stared at him. "Are you really okay with this?" Ethan met her eyes. "You said you wanted honesty. I'm giving you mine. But this isn't just about that night. It's about what happens afterward." Chloe nodded slowly. She knew he meant more than he was saying. The next day, Amanda texted, "Let's do it. Just tell me when." Chloe showed Ethan the message. He didn't say much, just read it, then walked out of the room. The date was set for the following weekend. No fancy plans, no games. Just three people stepping into a situation none of them truly understood. Chloe spent the days leading up to it in a haze. Ethan, on the other hand, was calm, focused, almost too composed. He didn't act excited. He didn't act nervous. He acted like a man preparing for something he already understood the outcome of. The night finally arrived. As Chloe got ready upstairs, Ethan moved furniture downstairs to make space. He dimmed the lights, arranged the wine glasses, and waited. When the doorbell rang, Chloe froze. Ethan opened it. "Hey, Amanda," he said, stepping aside. She walked in, her expression casual. "So, this is happening." Chloe appeared a moment later, and for a second the room felt like it could shatter. Amanda broke the tension with a smile. "Relax, we're all adults. Let's just see where the night goes." Ethan poured the wine, passed the glasses, and sat down. No one said it out loud, but they all knew this wasn't just a night of exploration, it was a test, and only one of them understood what it was truly measuring. The night began with small talk and awkward smiles, but tension lurked beneath every word. Chloe tried to keep things light, joking with Amanda like they used to, while Ethan remained quiet, watching. Amanda, as always, didn't seem fazed by the situation. She sipped her wine and laughed at Chloe's attempts to fill the silence. But her eyes flicked to Ethan often, curious, maybe even assessing him. After the second glass of wine, the laughter started to sound more natural. Chloe was beginning to loosen up. Ethan? Not so much. His focus was elsewhere. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't excited. He was calculating. As the evening moved forward, it was Amanda who finally addressed the elephant in the room. "So, are we doing this? Or are we just going to keep pretending this is a regular hangout?" The question landed like a thud. Chloe looked at Ethan. He gave the slightest nod. "Yeah," Chloe said quietly. "We're doing this." Amanda smirked, stood up, and walked to Chloe. She took her hand as if to say, "Then let's stop pretending." What happened next wasn't what mattered, not in the long term. The event itself played out like any other awkwardly staged experiment. Chloe tried to appear confident. Amanda took the lead. Ethan participated, but more like an observer than a partner. He stayed composed, calm, emotionally distant, and that, more than anything else, shook Chloe. It wasn't what she expected. Afterward, Amanda acted like it was no big deal. She got dressed, made a joke about needing better wine next time, and hugged them both before heading out. She even said, "Let me know if you ever want to repeat," with a wink, and then she was gone. Chloe sat on the edge of the couch, dazed. Ethan was already in the kitchen, rinsing glasses without a word. She followed him. "That was, surreal." He didn't respond. "I mean, weird, right? But I think it went okay." Still nothing. He dried a glass, placed it on the counter. "Ethan," she said. He looked at her for a moment, then said, "We'll see," before turning off the kitchen light and heading upstairs. She was left alone, unsure what "we'll see" even meant. The next morning, the house felt different, brighter somehow, but not in a comforting way. Chloe made breakfast like she always did. Ethan came down, greeted her with a nod, poured himself a coffee, and sat at the table. She waited for a comment, anything, but he just ate in silence. Trying to fill the void, she said, "Amanda texted. She said she had fun." Ethan looked up. "I'm glad she did." That tone, it wasn't sarcasm, but it wasn't warm either. "And you?" she asked. He put his fork down, wiped his mouth, and looked directly at her. "I thought it was informative." That word hit her the wrong way. "Informative?" "Yes," he said calmly. "I learned a lot." Chloe's throat tightened. "Like what?" Ethan leaned forward. "Like what you really want. What matters most to you?" She shook her head. "It was one night. It didn't mean anything." He chuckled, not with amusement, but with disbelief. "That's where we're different. It meant something to me." Chloe's voice dropped. "Are you mad at me?" "No, I'm not mad. I'm done." She froze. "Done with what?" "With pretending," he said. "With pretending we're on the same page." "Ethan," he stood up. "I agreed to this to see what you'd do, and now I know." She followed him into the living room. "You said you were okay with it." I said I'd try it. I did. And I realized what I needed to know. Which is what, she asked, heart pounding, that you were more excited about a stranger in our marriage than about fixing what was already broken. Her face crumpled. That's not fair. No, what's not fair is feeling like I had to test you to get the truth. That's what this really was, Chloe. A test. She was silent. There was nothing left to say. He walked past her, calm, deliberate. I'll be staying with Mark for a while. I'll send over the paperwork. Paperwork? She asked, but she already knew. Divorce. That word shattered what little composure she had left. You don't mean that, she whispered. I do. And I've never been more certain about anything. He went upstairs, leaving her alone again, in a room that now felt like someone else's life. Chloe sat down, trying to process what had just happened. The night she thought would bring them closer had only revealed how far apart they really were. What she had seen as openness, he had seen as a betrayal. And Ethan? He wasn't angry. He was finished. Chloe barely remembered the rest of that day. After Ethan announced he was leaving, everything blurred. He packed a single bag, answered no questions, and was gone within the hour. He didn't slam the door. He didn't yell. He simply left, and that made it worse. She sat alone on the couch, stunned by how fast things had unraveled. The house felt colder, heavier. Every corner reminded her of what used to be normal. The sound of Ethan's car starting outside hit harder than anything he had said. Later that evening, she texted him. Please call me. No reply. She tried again. We should talk before you do anything permanent. Nothing. She opened her phone again, this time scrolling through her messages with Amanda. The most recent one still sat unread. Last night was amazing. You two are braver than most couples I know. Let's do it again sometime. Chloe stared at it. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, but she didn't respond. She locked her phone and tossed it on the table, realizing Amanda was living in a different world, one where the night had no consequences. But for Chloe, the fallout had already started. The next morning, she woke up hoping the silence was temporary. Ethan would call. He'd come home and say it was just a shock. Maybe they could talk it through. But by noon, it was clear. He wasn't coming back. She drove to his office, hoping to find him and talk. His assistant told her he was working remotely for the week. That was the first real sign this wasn't just an impulsive reaction. It was a calculated move. When she returned home, the emptiness of the house was suffocating. Not because it was physically empty, but because Ethan's presence, his routines, his quiet strength, was gone. For the first time in years, Chloe didn't know what to do next. That night, she tried calling again. This time, he answered. I don't think we should talk until we've had time to process, he said calmly. Ethan, please. I didn't think it would hurt you this much. You were the one who said yes. I said yes because I needed to see if you would. That's not the same thing. Then say something. Tell me how to fix it. You can't fix something when the foundation is already gone. The line went quiet after that. He hung up before she could say another word. By the third day, the legal envelope arrived. Chloe sat at the kitchen table, staring at the divorce proposal. It was written in plain, sterile language. No accusations, no dramatics, just details. Asset division, next steps, a request for an amicable separation. It hit her harder than she expected, not because she didn't see it coming, but because it confirmed what she feared. He had already moved on emotionally. She tried to visit him once more, showing up at his friend Mark's house. Mark greeted her awkwardly and said Ethan wasn't there, even though she could see his car in the driveway. That was all she needed to know. She went back home and cried, not for what happened that night, but for everything that led to it. She thought they were still in sync. She thought the night with Amanda was an experiment, a chance to explore something together. But for Ethan, it was a turning point, a final answer to a question he'd been afraid to ask. The days dragged on. Chloe stopped checking her phone. Amanda messaged again, joking about when they'd do something wild next. Chloe blocked her without replying. She spent the next week in silence. No TV, no music. Just the sound of a house she no longer recognized. On the 8th day, Ethan sent a message. I'll stop by this weekend to collect the rest of my things. I'll bring the finalized papers. Let me know if you'd rather I send someone else. She stared at it for a long time, then typed, You can come. I'll be here. He arrived that Saturday just after noon. Chloe watched him walk through the door with quiet efficiency. No small talk, no eye contact. He gathered his belongings quickly, placing them in boxes he'd labeled himself. She waited until he was almost done. Ethan, I didn't want to lose you, she said. He paused, then looked at her. Then you should have fought for what we had, not for what you thought we were missing. I thought it would bring us closer. You thought wrong. His tone wasn't cruel. It was resigned, final. I still love you, she said. I believe you, he replied. But that's not enough. He handed her a pen. Sign it. Let's end this clean. Her hand trembled as she wrote her name on the line. With that, it was over. No dramatic goodbye, no last plea, just silence. He took the papers, gave her a small nod, and walked out the door. This time she didn't expect him to come back. Weeks passed, but time didn't bring clarity, only silence. The house was quiet now, not in the peaceful way it used to be, but in a way that reminded Chloe of everything that was missing. The mornings were the hardest. She'd wake up expecting Ethan to be beside her, then remember he was gone. Not temporarily, not in anger, just gone. At first, she kept trying to justify what happened, to herself, to friends who asked, even to Amanda, who sent another message, still unaware of the damage she'd helped trigger. Chloe never replied. Eventually, Amanda stopped texting altogether. One afternoon, Chloe stood in the kitchen staring at the breakfast table. 2 plates, 2 cups, habit. She put one back in the cabinet, poured coffee into the remaining cup, and sat down alone. The same place where Ethan had first told her he wanted a divorce. It wasn't about the night itself. She understood that now. It was about trust, and about what Ethan had always valued more than anything. Partnership built on loyalty, not excitement. Emotional connection, not novelty. For him, the moment Chloe agreed to involve someone else wasn't just about permission. It was about a shift in priorities, a willingness to explore something new at the cost of what they had spent years building. And the fact that she said yes so easily, that was the answer he'd been searching for. Chloe hadn't seen it as betrayal. At the time, she saw it as bold, a chance to prove how open-minded and trusting their marriage was. But in reality, she'd gambled everything on a moment of curiosity, and she'd lost. Ethan, on the other hand, didn't celebrate his decision. There were no signs of victory, no rebound posts or self-congratulatory speeches to friends. He quietly moved into a small apartment across town, focused on work, and stayed off social media. He didn't block Chloe's number, but he never used it either. One evening, months after the papers were finalized, they ran into each other at a small local bookstore. Chloe was browsing near the back when she turned and saw him. Calm, clean-cut, flipping through a novel like nothing had changed. But everything had. They made eye contact. Neither moved. Finally, Chloe walked up and said, "Hi." He nodded. "Hey." There was a pause, just long enough to feel the weight of all the things they weren't going to say. "You look good," she offered. "So do you," he replied. Then after a moment, "How are you doing?" She didn't lie. "Trying to figure things out." "You?" "Same." They stood there a moment longer, not as lovers, not even as friends, just as two people who once shared everything and now shared nothing but a memory. "I still think about that morning," she said, "the one after Amanda left. I thought we were okay." Ethan looked at her with the same calm that had once comforted her, now painfully distant. "I know you did. I didn't think it would break us." "It didn't," he said. "It revealed we were already broken." That was the last thing he said before turning back to the shelves. Chloe left the store before he did. That night, she sat at home and reread the final pages of their divorce agreement. She had never really looked at them before. Her lawyer had walked her through it, but she hadn't absorbed the details. Now she saw the line Ethan had added, almost buried in the middle. "This agreement does not imply blame or wrongdoing. It reflects a mutual decision to preserve dignity and peace." That was Ethan. Even after everything, he'd chosen to part ways respectfully. No accusations, no bitterness, just boundaries. Chloe closed the folder and sat in silence. What she finally understood, what had taken her months to accept, was that the real betrayal hadn't been sleeping with someone else. It was prioritizing her fantasy over their reality, choosing thrill over loyalty, and expecting Ethan to follow along when she no longer saw the same value in what they had. In the months that followed, Chloe didn't try to date. She didn't reach out to Amanda. She stopped romanticizing what had happened and started reflecting on how quickly a moment of recklessness could destroy years of trust. She joined a writing group, picked up weekend volunteering at an animal shelter, and tried to reconnect with the parts of herself that weren't shaped by Ethan or by what she had lost. The grief was still there. So was the guilt. But so was the clarity. Meanwhile, Ethan moved on quietly. He began seeing someone new, slowly. Not publicly. He wasn't in a rush. What he wanted now was different, simpler. Someone who understood that loyalty wasn't negotiable and that partnership meant protecting what you build, not testing how far it can bend. He never spoke badly of Chloe. Not to friends, not to his new partner. He didn't need to. The past had already taught him what he needed to know. For both of them, the story ended without fireworks, but with truth. And the truth was this: a moment of desire can change everything. But trust, once broken, it rarely returns the same.